I never imagined the life I built with my wife, Jessica, could collapse so completely in just one afternoon. My name is Ryan. I'm 35, and for years, I believed our marriage rested on trust, love, and mutual respect. But that day, at what was supposed to be a simple office gathering, I discovered betrayal so blatant it left me frozen. The warning signs had been there for months. Jessica had grown distant, more critical, and increasingly secretive. Compliments disappeared, replaced by cutting remarks and subtle jabs. She'd make jokes at my expense, and I often brushed them off as harmless teasing, but deep down, I felt a growing divide I could no longer ignore. Her boss, Mark, had always been friendly, someone I trusted. I never imagined anything inappropriate could happen between them. Yet something about the way she laughed at his jokes, leaned in during conversations, lingered just a moment too long. It unsettled me. I tried to dismiss it, but my instincts refused to lie. The gathering itself was meant to be casual, a networking lunch with colleagues at a nearby restaurant. I arrived, a mix of nervous anticipation and mild irritation, expecting a normal social event. But the moment I walked in, the energy between Jessica and Mark was undeniable. They were too close. Subtle touches, shared glances, and laughter that felt intimate, almost secretive. Then came the moment that shattered me completely. Jessica, with a playful grin, whispered something to a group of colleagues. I couldn't hear it, but the reaction was immediate. A few laughs, and I knew instantly it was about me. Then she did the unthinkable. She casually sat on Mark's lap, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Time stopped. My mind raced. Every instinct screamed this was beyond inappropriate, a public declaration of betrayal. The months of subtle humiliation, whispered criticisms, dismissive behavior, it all fell into place. Jessica had been undermining me for months, building a narrative where I could never satisfy her, while being physically intimate with someone else in front of witnesses. I didn't react immediately. I knew losing my composure would only make the situation worse. Instead, I breathed deeply, observing every detail, names, faces, reactions. Everything mattered. By the end of that lunch, I had made a decision. This betrayal could not remain hidden. Everyone involved needed to understand the truth. Afterward, I struggled to think straight. Humiliation, anger, disbelief. They swirled inside me like a storm I couldn't escape. I returned home trying to calm myself, but the image of Jessica on Mark's lap, smiling as if nothing were wrong, burned into my mind. I knew I had to confront her, but carefully, with control, clarity, and proof. That evening, after the kids were asleep, the house quiet, I found her sprawled on the couch, scrolling her phone, oblivious to my inner turmoil. I sat across from her, hands folded, heart pounding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. She looked up, feigning innocence. "About what?" she asked casually, almost mockingly. "About what you did today," I replied, fixing her with a steady gaze. "Sitting on Mark's lap, telling everyone I couldn't satisfy you. I saw it all." Her smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of fear. "Ryan, it wasn't like that. It was just a joke." "People laugh," she murmured. "Was it a joke when you've been undermining me for months?" I asked, voice rising slightly but controlled. "Was it a joke when you made me feel inadequate in private? Or when you humiliated me in front of friends and colleagues?" Her silence confirmed what I already knew. This betrayal wasn't just physical. It was psychological, emotional, a sustained campaign to diminish me while elevating herself in others' eyes. "I trusted you," I said, leaning forward. "I trusted you with my respect, my love, my life, and you chose to destroy it. Publicly, privately, everywhere. You did it with my trust, thinking I'd never see it coming." Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't think you'd find out," she whispered. "I didn't have to find out," I replied. "You told everyone. You acted like betraying me was normal. That's the reality, Jessica. And now everyone knows who you really are, not just to me, but to yourself too." She tried to speak, but I shook my head. "No excuses, no justifications. This is who you are, and it changes everything between us." The room felt suffocating, the betrayal tangible, a weight pressing against my chest. The public humiliation at lunch was nothing compared to the private devastation she'd inflicted over months of lies, manipulation, and deceit. I spent the rest of the night planning my next steps. Exposure had to be complete, not just for me, but for everyone who witnessed her actions. If deception thrives in silence, truth must shine, no matter how painful. The days that followed were tense and surreal. Jessica avoided me, hiding behind forced smiles and empty apologies. Colleagues whispered when she entered the room. Friends, once comfortable around our marriage, now gave cautious glances, unsure how to act around a relationship that had collapsed in plain sight. I realized quickly that betrayal has consequences far beyond a single relationship. Trust, once broken, ripples outward, affecting perceptions, connections, and social bonds I had taken for granted. Yet, I found strange relief in the exposure. For months, I had carried suspicion and anxiety. Now, with the truth out, that burden was gone. I confronted myself as much as her. Could I have seen the signs earlier? Could I have intervened before it became public? The answers didn't undo the pain, but they clarified reality. Deception thrives when ignored. Sometimes the most loving act is facing head-on. The following weeks became a careful dance. I set boundaries, not from spite, but necessity. I distanced myself from Jessica and Mark, focusing on restoring dignity, self-respect, and control over my life. Every interaction was deliberate. I refused to be drawn into further manipulation or drama. Friends and family offered support, perspective, and comfort. They reminded me that betrayal reflects a deceiver's character, not your worth. Slowly, I reclaimed normalcy, mundane routines, small victories, quiet evenings, things I had taken for granted before trust was broken. The children were the hardest part. Watching them process the fractures in our family, knowing they witnessed lies and betrayal, was almost unbearable. I focused on open communication, reassurance, and stability, emphasizing that my love for them remained unwavering despite the chaos adults created. Months later, the sting of betrayal softened, though the memory stayed vivid. I learned that exposure isn't about revenge. It's about clarity, closure, and the courage to face reality. Deception may inflict temporary pain, but truth brings freedom, however painful, and the power to rebuild. Sitting alone one night, reflecting on everything, I realized betrayal does not define you unless you let it. I had lost trust, yes, but I had regained myself. In the quiet aftermath of exposure, I discovered a strength I never knew existed. The lesson was clear. The darkest betrayals illuminate the deepest truths, and in facing them, we uncovered resilience to move forward.